The frontier colony of Fairwind Station orbited in a silent halo of reflected sunlight, a modest human settlement clinging to the edges of mapped space. From a distance, it was a glimmer against the black, more a stubborn hope than a fortress. It was built not for war but for study and trade. Silver habitat rings, greenhouses under protective domes, and docking bays welcoming merchants from as far as Orion's span. Inside the station's command deck, Administrator Alina Kess stood at the wide viewport, watching the slow turn of a gas giant below. It was a quiet day, the kind of quiet that on the frontier could mean either safety or the deep breath before a storm. She had learned to distrust quiet. Administrator, her comms officer called, his voice tighter than usual. Long-range sensors have picked up a formation of vessels approaching from Sector 7. No transponder codes, no flight plans logged. Alina's brow furrowed. Out here, visitors were rare but not unheard of. Pirates sometimes tested the patrol routes, but Fairwind was far from anything worth the trouble. Show me. The holographic display bloomed in front of her, blue dots marking their own patrol drones and red markers appearing one by one. The red kept multiplying, 20, 30, then 40 ships. Large signatures, their hull mass readings too big for civilian traders. Her stomach sank. Classification. The AI's voice was cool and neutral. Vessels match configuration of Velari Dominion warships. Probability of hostile intent, 98%. Velari. The name was a shadow in every colonial administrator's mind. They were an old power, older than humanity's first crude jumpships, with a proud tradition of civilized warfare. Their own term for a set of rules they claimed kept war clean, predictable, and profitable. Those rules had allowed them to conquer dozens of worlds without ever admitting they were conquerors. "Open a hailing channel," Alina said. Static filled the bridge for a second before resolving into the image of a tall, pale-skinned alien with narrow, silver-ringed eyes and a crest of bone down his forehead. He wore a deep blue tunic traced with gold filigree, the uniform of a Velari High Captain. "This is High Captain Drevar of the Dominion Fleet," he announced without preamble. "You are in violation of regional security protocols. Your station's orbit lies within territory under Velari protection. For the safety of your citizens, you will disable your shields and prepare for boarding. Compliance will ensure the survival of your colony under Dominion stewardship." It was an offer disguised as mercy. Everyone knew what Dominion stewardship meant. The station would be stripped of any assets, its population turned into indentured workers, and its identity erased. Alina kept her voice steady. "This colony is under the protection of the United Terran Commonwealth. Any action against us is an act of war." Drevar's lip curled into something that might have been amusement. "Your Commonwealth is too distant to matter here. We will honor the civilized customs of engagement. Once your shields are below 40%, you will surrender. That is the way the galaxy has fought for 3,000 years. The channel cut without waiting for her reply. Her security chief swore under his breath. "Our orbital defense grid is a handful of point defense turrets and a pair of kinetic launchers against 40 Velari warships." She didn't answer. Her eyes went to the deep space comm beacon at the edge of the viewport. She gave the order. "Send an emergency Priority 1 distress signal. Attach full telemetry. Route it to every listening post in range." The officer hesitated. "Ma'am, even if someone hears it." "Do it." The signal went out. A desperate spark flung into the dark. Admiral Elias Reeves stood on the bridge of the USS Iron Dawn, a warship the size of a city block, its matte black hull swallowing the starlight around it. The Dawn was a dreadnought-class vessel, built in the wake of too many colonial massacres, equipped not just to fight but to end fights. When the distress signal reached his ship, Reeve was already charting a course toward Fairwind. His tactical officer, Commander Harper, glanced up from her station. "Signal came in 3 minutes ago, sir. Velari fleet strength is 42 warships. Colonial defenses are minimal. Distance, 26 light minutes at our current flank speed." Reeves' jaw tightened. In another navy, there might have been talk of protocol, of gathering reinforcements, of diplomatic overtures. But the Commonwealth had learned something the galaxy hadn't. Waiting to respond cost lives. "Helm," he ordered, "all reactors to maximum. We burn straight in. We'll arrive in 12 minutes. Harper hesitated. "Sir, entering that fast will drop us right into their engagement range without time for maneuver." Reeves' gaze stayed on the starfield ahead. "Exactly. They won't be ready for it." Fairwind's shields flared under the first barrage of Velari energy fire, violet beams splashing against the transparent barrier that rippled across the station's curve. The station trembled under each impact. High Captain Drevar stood on the bridge of his flagship, hands clasped behind his back, watching the shield strength indicators drop with each salvo. 58%, his gunnery officer reported. "Continue, they will yield at 40, they all do." One of his aides, young, scales still bright, leaned in with a trace of unease. "Sir, the human distress signal, should we not jam it?" Drevar's amusement returned. "Let them call. Their nearest warships are weeks away. This fight will be over long before any help arrives." He did not see the red icon appear on his tactical display until the ship's AI flagged it as an anomaly. A single massive contact approaching at extraordinary velocity. "What is that?" he demanded. "Unknown vessel, sir. Size and mass exceed standard human warship designs. No registry match. It will be within weapons range in 2 minutes." 2 minutes? That was impossible. No one entered a battle that fast. It was suicide. The comms officer looked up. "They're transmitting, sir." The bridge speakers crackled. A human voice, steady and cold, filled the space. "This is Admiral Elias Reeve of the United Terran Commonwealth Dreadnought Iron Dawn. You have attacked human civilians. You will disengage immediately or face consequences." There was no request for negotiation, no plea, just a statement of terms as unyielding as the voice that delivered it. Drevar blinked. "Open a channel." "They've cut transmission, sir." The red icon was closing, straight toward them. No weaving, no cautious arcs, just a direct burn like a thrown spear. Drevar's fleet moved into standard engagement formation, energy cannons swiveling to meet the oncoming threat. "All ships target that vessel, full power, fire as soon as it's in range." The first Velari salvo lit the void with streams of violet light converging on the Iron Dawn. In any other battle, the concentrated barrage would have burned through shields in seconds. Instead, the energy burst against her hull, absorbed and diffused by layered physical armor. A concept so archaic the Velari didn't even have a term for it in modern military language. On the Dawn's bridge, Reeve watched without expression. "They'll be asking themselves why we're not dead," Harper murmured. "Let's give them their answer." The Dawn's main batteries roared, not in light, but in silence, as tungsten projectiles the size of tree trunks left the rail cannons at a fraction below light speed. The impacts were instantaneous in the Velari flagship sensors. One of their cruisers vanished in a flare of molten debris, its hull atomized before the crew even registered the hit. On Drevar's bridge, the shock was palpable. What was that? Kinetic impact, sir. No energy signature. Our shields can't. The second salvo tore another cruiser apart. The Velari fleet tried to adapt, pulling back, spreading formation to minimize losses. But the Dawn closed the gap, undeterred by their energy fire. Her secondary batteries opened up, smaller caliber kinetic guns spitting guided slugs that tore through Velari hulls like glass. In Fairwind's command deck, Alina watched the battle unfold in real time, awe overtaking fear. She had heard of the Commonwealth Navy, of course, but this was different. This was a predator among prey. On the Dawn, Reeve gave his next order without raising his voice. "Prepare boarding wings." Harper arched a brow. Boarding, in a fleet engagement. They are not built for it. They won't know how to stop us. In the launch bays, armored shuttles came alive, their pilots sealing helmets and Marines checking weapons. Sergeant Mason's voice carried over the squad channel. "Remember, they've never fought up close. No defensive bulkheads, no internal choke points. We get in, we own the ship." The shuttles launched, weaving through the chaos of the fleet battle, darting under energy fire that couldn't track their erratic paths. One slammed into the side of a Velari cruiser, magnetic clamps biting into alien metal. Plasma cutters burned a glowing circle, and the first humans stepped into an enemy ship still in combat, a concept that simply didn't exist in Velari doctrine. Within minutes, the bridge of the cruiser was under human control, its officers staring at these armored figures who fought like the old warriors from myth, unafraid to close the distance. Back on the Dawn, Reeve listened to the boarding reports, each confirming another alien vessel taken. He thought of the Velari's smug certainty when they'd promised Fairwind civilized conquest. Civilized war had rules. Real war had winners. As the Dawn's sensors swept the debris field, Reeve knew the battle was only the opening move. Once word spread, others would come, and humanity would be tested not just in strength, but in the reason for that strength. He turned to Harper. "Signal Fairwind, their skies are clear for now. Then prepare for pursuit. I want every Velari ship that ran today." The bridge crew moved to obey, the hum of the Dawn's reactors building like the heartbeat of something alive and intent. The war had found humanity on the edge of its frontier, and humanity had answered. But in answering, they had changed the rules for everyone. And the galaxy was about to learn that once humans fought for something they loved, they didn't stop until it was safe. The Dawn's hull still bore the faint afterglow of absorbed energy fire, the matte armor plate scarred but unbroken. Fairwind Station floated behind them now, a silver ring glinting in the light of its gas giant. Its people were safe, but Admiral Reeve knew safety bought in minutes could be lost in hours. "Course plotted," Harper reported. "Velari survivors are retreating on 3 vectors. 10 ships in the main group, 7 in the second, 5 in the third, all heading toward Dominion territory." "Priority?" Reeve asked. "The 10-ship group, they're moving at full burn. If we push the drives, we can intercept in 40 minutes. Reeve stood silent for a moment, the deck humming under his boots. Helm, plot, pursuit, all batteries hot, boarding wings on standby. Harper glanced over. "Sir, Council protocols would call this a withdrawal. Once they break engagement, We're not the Council," Reeve said, his voice calm but iron-edged. "They started this. We decide when it ends. In the hangar bays, Marines moved with the easy precision of soldiers who had drilled so often their muscles reacted before their minds caught up. Sergeant Mason walked the length of his squad, checking seals, reading faces. "Remember what you saw on that cruiser," he told them. "They don't know how to fight up close. They'll panic, and panic's a door you can walk through." Corporal Lane checked his rifle, locking in a fresh magazine. "What if they start adapting, Sarge?" Mason gave a thin smile. "Then we adapt faster." On a nearby workbench, tech specialist Arjun Rao was assembling a portable relay unit. "Admiral wants live feed from the history archive ready on my signal. Visual, audio, everything." Mason raised an eyebrow. "Psych warfare." Rao's grin was sharper. "Education." The Dawn's engines burned hotter than the void around them, closing the gap between predator and prey. In the Velari fleet's lead ship, High Captain Drevar stood tense, the confidence from earlier already cracked. "How are they closing so fast?" he demanded. "They're pushing reactor output beyond safety limits," his engineer replied, eyes wide. "No ship is designed to." "Apparently theirs is," Drevar snapped. He turned to his comms officer. "Signal all ships. Prepare for defensive globe formation." The officer hesitated. "Sir, that is standard procedure, but..." "But what?" "The humans, they don't follow standard procedure." Drevar's jaw tightened. "Form the globe. We will fight as civilization dictates." When the Dawn dropped into range, she didn't slow. Reeve gave the order without ceremony. "Fire." The opening salvo shredded one of the Velari picket ships, its hull breaking into 3 jagged pieces that tumbled in silence. The rest of the fleet tightened formation, exactly what Reeve wanted. "Launch boarding wings," he ordered. The shuttles streaked out, each weaving through the thin gaps between Velari ships. Energy fire chased them but found only empty space. Marines breached hulls, smoke curling into alien corridors where crew stumbled in confusion. On the bridge of one captured cruiser, Sergeant Mason activated the portable relay unit. Screens around the command deck flickered to life, not with tactical data, but with images from Earth's long history of war. Velari officers stared as armored horsemen charged across medieval battlefields, as musket lines fired through smoke, as amphibious landings churned surf into chaos. The footage shifted, grainy but vivid, showing human soldiers under artillery fire, crawling through mud, holding ground not because it was safe but because it mattered. What is this?" one Velari officer whispered. "Our history," Mason said flatly. "Every lesson we've learned about war came with a price. You think it's a calculation, we know it's a choice." On the Dawn, Harper was monitoring the boarding comms when Rao's feed came through. The alien voices were tight, panicked, their language a mix of disbelief and fear. "They're rattled," Harper said to Reeve. "Their captains are asking for instructions on how to repel boarders. They've never done it before." "Good," Reeve replied. "Confusion is an ally you don't have to feed." The second wave of boarding teams hit 2 more cruisers, each falling faster than the last. With every capture, the Velari formation fractured. Ships peeled away, breaking their own globe to flee. Drevar's flagship was one of the last to hold position. On his tactical display, he watched his fleet crumble, the red icons winking out or shifting to hostile control as human Marines took their bridges. He knew what should happen next. According to every treaty in galactic memory, once enough damage was sustained, surrender was the civilized path. It preserved lives, limited destruction. "Signal the humans," he ordered. "We yield. Full surrender under council law." The comms officer sent the transmission. 30 seconds later, a reply came, not in text but voice. "This is Admiral Reeve." The words rolled across the Velari bridge like cold water. "Your surrender is noted. It is not accepted." Shock rippled through the crew. Drevar's frill flushed a deeper hue. "What? You crossed into human territory," Reeve's voice continued. "You fired on civilians. You don't get to choose how this ends." Back on the Dawn, Harper lowered her headset. "Sir, we're outside every known engagement protocol. The Council will." "The Council wasn't here," Reeve said, eyes fixed ahead. "Fairwind's families were." He didn't need to say more. The Dawn surged forward, main guns swiveling to target the remaining Velari ships. The final exchange was short and merciless. When the last enemy vessel broke apart under a kinetic strike, silence filled the bridge except for the hum of the reactors. Harper exhaled slowly. "It's done." "No," Reeve said. "It's begun." Hours later, the captured Velari crews were gathered in the Iron Dawn's auxiliary hangar, ringed by armed Marines. They sat or stood in small groups, their postures a mix of exhaustion and guarded defiance. Admiral Reeve entered, flanked by Mason and Rao. He regarded the prisoners for a long moment before speaking. "You've been told your way of war is civilized," he said. "That distance and rules keep it clean. But you've forgotten something your ancestors knew. What it means when someone will fight you up close, not for glory, not for gain, but for the person next to them." At his nod, Rao activated the relay again. This time the hangar walls came alive with a flood of images and sound. Not just battles, rescues. Soldiers carrying wounded comrades through fire. Human crews pulling enemy survivors from burning ships. War memorials standing in silent cities. "This is why we fight," Reeve said. "Not to erase you, not to rule you, but to make sure no one takes from us what we will not surrender." A young Velari officer raised his head, voice trembling. "You enjoy war." "No," Reeve said quietly. "We endure it, and we make damn sure we're better at it than anyone who would start it." When the last prisoner was secured, Reeve returned to the bridge. Harper was waiting with a tactical report. "Velari reinforcements are en route from their core sectors. Ida, 4 days. They'll bring numbers." Reeve studied the star map. "Then we make the most of those 4 days." Harper tilted her head. "Sir, we have 3 captured cruisers with functional systems. I want every salvage team working. Strip their shields, weapons, power cores, anything that will fit the Dawn." Harper gave a short laugh. "You want to refit a dreadnought in 4 days, in open space?" Reeve's mouth curved in something almost like a smile. "I want to make history." In the Dawn's forward workshop, welders sparked and cutting torches hissed. Human engineers argued over alien schematics, their hands blackened from grease and alloy dust. Sergeant Mason's Marines hauled massive shield generators into place while Rao cursed over incompatible power couplings. "This mount wasn't made for our hull shape," one engineer complained. "Then make it fit," Mason said, bracing one side of the generator while another Marine adjusted the lift rig. Rao knelt over an alien targeting core. "They built this to control energy beams, but if I strip the auto delay and tie it into our fire control, we could run kinetic rounds with energy wrapping, twice the punch." "Do it," Mason said. It was messy, dangerous, and every rulebook in the galaxy would have called it impossible, which, in Reeve's mind, made it the perfect human project. 4 days later, the Iron Dawn floated in the black, her profile subtly changed. New shield nodes glowed faintly across her flanks, Alien energy cannon housing sat alongside railgun barrels, and her drive emissions pulsed with a deeper, heavier rhythm. Harper stood at her console, running final diagnostics. Shields are 2.7 times stronger than standard. Weapons output is up by 190%. Engine efficiency about the same. We still can't break physics. Yet, Reeves said. An alert flashed across Harper's board. Velari reinforcements just crossed the edge of the sector. 25 warships plus carrier support. They're broadcasting demand for our immediate withdrawal. Reeve looked out at the stars. Open a channel. When the link connected, Drevar's image filled the screen, his eyes cold. Admiral Reeve, this is your final chance to avoid destruction. You are outnumbered. Surrender and we will grant your crew safe passage. Reeve's answer was steady. You've already seen what we do when we're outnumbered. The channel cut. He turned to Harper. Battle stations. Somewhere deep in the ship, a klaxon began to sound, its rising tone not unlike a heartbeat before a sprint. The war had started at Fairwind, but Reeve knew it was here, in the open black, that the galaxy would begin to understand what humans brought to a fight, and why they fought at all. The Iron Dawn's battle klaxon faded into the low, steady hum of readiness. On the bridge, every console lit with the red glow of combat mode. Outside, the stars seemed sharper, the darkness heavier, as if the void itself was holding its breath. Enemy fleet range, 2 million kilometers, Harper reported. They are maintaining formation, 2 lines of cruisers ahead, carriers in the rear. Standard Dominion doctrine. Which means, Reeve said quietly, they expect us to behave like every other opponent they've ever fought. Sir, Harper asked, do we? Reeve allowed himself the faintest of smiles. We don't even behave like the humans they fought last week. In the engineering decks, the atmosphere was a mixture of nerves and focus. The alien shield generators pulsed with a deep violet light, integrated awkwardly into the Dawn's superstructure with freshly welded mounting brackets and jury-rigged power couplings. They were ugly, but they worked. Chief Engineer Holt stood with his hand on a console, feeling the vibration through the plating. They're hot and stable, he told his crew, but if one of these things overloads, it'll vent half the deck into space. Treat it like you're dancing with a nuke. Beside him, Arjun Rao was tying the alien targeting core into the Dawn's gunnery systems. 2 more minutes, Admiral, and we'll have energy-wrapped tungsten rounds. Make it 1, Reeve said over comms. They're closing fast. Out in the black, the Velari fleet advanced in perfect synchrony. On Drevar's flagship, his tactical officer spoke with mechanical calm. We have them bracketed in firing range in 4 minutes. Shall I begin energy suppression protocol? Yes, Drevar said, his voice carrying the cold assurance of a man convinced the enemy would soon be ash. Their hybrid modifications are desperate improvisations. They'll fail under sustained fire. But Drevar didn't understand what improvisation meant to humans. In Dominion culture, improvisation was a mark of failure in planning. In human history, it was survival distilled into skill. The first exchange came like a sudden storm. The Velari fired as one, a wall of violet energy washing over the Dawn's shields. The alien generators absorbed the brunt, shunting excess power into the Dawn's reactors, just as Reeve had hoped. Shields holding at 93%, Harper reported, astonishment in her voice. Power reserves increasing. Redirect to the main batteries, Reeve ordered. The Dawn's guns spoke. Tungsten rods, now wrapped in a searing sheath of converted energy, flew at near-light velocity. The first impact hit a Dominion cruiser head-on, the energy field tearing through its shields before the solid mass cored the vessel clean through. It split apart like a log under an axe. Two more followed, each shot punching holes in the flawless Velari formation. On Drevar's bridge, the shock was immediate. "What weapon is that?" he demanded. "Kinetic rounds, but enhanced." His gunnery officer stammered. "Our shields cannot stop them." "Adapt," Drevar barked, but they couldn't, not fast enough. Reeve knew the danger wasn't in the first few minutes, it was in letting them recover their composure. The Velari would study, adjust, calculate. That was their strength. It was also the weakness he intended to exploit. "Helm," he said, "flank speed, spiral approach. Keep our vector unpredictable. Harper, signal Mason, launch boarding teams on my mark." In the hangars, Marines sealed helmets and ran final checks. Sergeant Mason stood at the open ramp of his shuttle, staring out into the starlit void. "You know the drill. We're not here just to take their ships, we're here to take their confidence. Hit hard, hit fast, vanish before they know what happened." Corporal Lane chuckled grimly. "And if they do know," Mason's voice was steady, "then make them wish they didn't." The shuttles launched in staggered bursts, riding the Dawn's sensor-jamming field. They darted between bursts of energy fire, weaving toward their targets like predators through tall grass. One of the boarding teams hit a Velari carrier. Inside, the hangar was filled with sleek Dominion interceptors, ships designed for precision and formation flying. The Marines came in like a hammer. Within minutes, they controlled the hangar. Rao's portable relay came online again, but this time, instead of showing only human battle footage, it displayed scenes of recovery and rebuilding. Berlin in 1945, New York after the September attacks, cities on Mars after the dust riots. A Velari pilot held at gunpoint stared at the images. "Why show us this? These are ruins." Mason's answer was blunt. "Because every one of those ruins was rebuilt. You think destroying something ends the fight. For us, it starts the next chapter." On the Dawn, Harper monitored the boarding telemetry. 2 ships under Marine control, 3rd team en route to a battleship. Reeve's eyes stayed on the tactical display. "Signal all captured ships. Stand by for coordinated fire on their own fleet." One by one, the stolen Velari ships turned their weapons outward. Dominion captains shouted over open comms in disbelief as their own vessels joined the human attack. The Velari formation was unraveling when Drevar made his last gamble. "Deploy the arc shields," he ordered. Gasps rippled through his bridge crew. The arc shields were ancient, massive energy barriers generated by the carriers, a relic of Dominion supremacy designed to hold back entire fleets. The shimmering walls of light spread across the void, sealing the Dawn in with the core of the Velari force. "Now," Drevar said, "we finish this." Energy fire rained in from all sides. Even the hybrid shields flickered under the onslaught. On the Dawn, systems flashed warnings. "Shields at 60%, Harper called. Reeve's mind moved through centuries of human history, the moments when armies faced encirclement, Canny, Stalingrad, the Coral Sea. Some had fallen, some had broken through. The difference was will. "Helm," he said, "all power to forward drives. We're going through them." The Dawn's engines roared. The dreadnought surged toward the arc shields, guns blazing, boarding shuttles flanking. The hybrid rounds tore a hole in the barrier just wide enough for the Dawn's bulk to force through. The shockwave of its passage sent Dominion cruisers tumbling in its wake. On the far side of the arc shields, the Velari line was broken. Reeve didn't slow. Target their command ships. End this clean." One by one, the high-value vessels went dark, their bridges overrun or their hulls split open by kinetic strikes. In less than an hour from first contact, the battle was over. Later, in the quiet of the strategy room, Harper studied the after-action data. "We had no right to win that, sir. On paper, we were outnumbered, outgunned, and cornered." Reeve was silent for a moment before answering. "Paper doesn't fight battles, people do." She looked at him. "And now the Dominion knows that." "They're not the only ones who need to," Reeve said. He turned to the comm officer. "Send a full combat log to Commonwealth Command, and copy it to every neutral system within range. Let the galaxy see what happens when you think we'll play by your rules." Outside the viewport, the stars were the same as they had been before the fight, cold, distant, indifferent. But somewhere in the vast web of worlds and empires, news of the Iron Dawn's stand was spreading, and with it the unsettling realization that humanity didn't just survive war, they learned from it. In the Dominion capital, Drevar would be called to answer for the loss. In council halls, delegates would whisper about escalation. And in a dozen shadowed corners of the galaxy, other powers would start to wonder if humanity was a threat to fear or an ally to court. Reeve knew the answer didn't matter yet. The next test was already coming. The Dominion fleet's wreckage drifted silently behind them, a scattering of twisted hulls and frozen debris that would orbit the empty void for centuries. The Iron Dawn's armor was blackened in patches, her new shield nodes still glowing faintly from the strain, but she was alive. In the galaxy's military logic, that battle should have been the end of the story. One fleet destroyed, another humiliated, the threat over for now. But the galaxy had changed the moment humanity broke the rules. Reeve was in the strategy room when the triple alert came in. Harper entered first, holding a datapad with 3 distinct priority seals, each from a different intelligence source. "Sir," she said, placing them on the table, "we have converging threats, not just Dominion. 3 separate powers are moving fleets toward our position." Reeve scanned the reports, his eyes narrowing. The glyphs were different, one marked with the jagged spiral of the Khazari hegemony, another the silver arc of the Torval Confederation, and the third the flame insignia of the Zalthian Alliance. "They're not allies," Harper said. "They've fought each other before, but now they are all headed here." "Reason?" Reeve asked, though he already suspected. Harper's voice was dry. "They want to see if the stories are true." In the hangar decks, Sergeant Mason and his Marines listened as the news spread. Some grinned, others went silent. Corporal Lane muttered, 73 ships, 3 different navies, all gunning for one dreadnought. Sounds like suicide." Mason just checked the seals on his combat armor. "No, suicide is giving up before the fight starts." On the engineering deck, Rao was already running checks on the hybrid systems. "If we pull this off, we'll rewrite every tactical manual in the galaxy," he said. Holt grunted without looking up from a console. "If we don't, nobody's gonna be around to write it." The Iron Dawn moved toward a cluster of empty systems, a region of sparse asteroid belts and thin gas clouds. Reeve's choice of battlefield was deliberate. Here, the enemy's perfect formations would be disrupted by terrain, their long-range energy weapons forced to track targets weaving through debris. Harper looked over her console. "Sir, we could retreat to Commonwealth space, call for reinforcements." Reeve didn't answer immediately. He'd fought long enough to know when to take help. But this wasn't about holding ground. It was about teaching a lesson. "If we run," he said finally, "they'll decide Fairwind was luck. They'll keep testing until they find a day we're too slow to answer. We end that idea here." The enemy fleets arrived like three storms from three horizons. The Khazari hegemony came from the galactic north, their cruisers broad and heavily armored, built for brute force exchanges. The Torval Confederation approached from the east, their needle-shaped ships optimized for precision energy strikes. And from the south came the Zalthian Alliance with 18 massive battleships bristling with guns, their hulls plated in shimmering alloys. 73 ships total, Harper reported. Formations perfect, they've left themselves no gaps. Reeve studied the tactical map. Open a channel to all fleets. When the connection opened, the bridge filled with the overlapping voices of three alien admirals, each announcing their terms: surrender, inspection, proof of capability. Reeve let them speak. Then when the last demand faded, he said, "You want a test? Very well, all three of you may attack at once. Let's see if the galaxy still knows what a real fight looks like." The first barrage came from the hegemony, 25 heavy cruisers unleashing their main batteries. The energy slammed into the Dawn's hybrid shields, flaring bright and then folding into the reactors. "Shields holding at 96%, Harper called. "Power reserves climbing. Feed it to the guns," Reeve ordered. The Dawn's return fire was savage. Kinetic rounds wrapped in searing energy fields, each impact punching through the hegemony's shields as if they were mist. 3 cruisers vanished in seconds. The Torval fleet shifted tactics, targeting the Dawn's shield nodes with surgical precision. Their beams lanced through the debris fields, but the Dawn's hull turned into the attack, presenting layered armor instead of fragile emitters. "Boarding wings, launch," Reeve commanded. Mason's shuttles streaked toward the Torval line. The Marines had studied every scrap of intelligence on Torval ship design. They knew the blind spots, the poorly defended junctions, the maintenance shafts big enough for an armored human to crawl through. Inside one Torval destroyer, Mason's squad moved like a flood. Smoke grenades turned the bright corridors into shadowed chaos. Flashbangs stunned crew who had never seen such close quarters fighting. In under 9 minutes, the bridge was secure. "Torval destroyer captured," Mason reported. "Good," Reeve said. "Turn her guns around." The Zalthian battleships advanced steadily, their shimmering armor scattering sensor locks. Their heavy weapons pounded the Dawn's shields, finally forcing them down to 70%. Harper's tone sharpened. "We can't take that sustained forever." "Then don't," Reeve replied. "Rivera, you're up." Lieutenant Rivera's fighter squadron dove from the Dawn's belly, modified with alien thrusters and stripped-down armor for maximum agility. They didn't attack head-on. Instead, they weaved between the battleships, using their massive hulls as cover while planting explosive charges on weapon mounts. Over open comms, a Zalthian officer's voice rang with disbelief. "They're flying inside our formations. It's chaos." "That's the point," Rivera said and detonated the charges. 3 battleships went silent, their guns dark. By now, the battle had become a storm of shifting allegiances. Captured Torval ships fired on Zalthian targets. Hegemony cruisers broke formation to avoid the Dawn's guns, opening gaps for Marine shuttles to slip through. Reeve coordinated it all with the same calm he'd had since Fairwind, directing strikes, redirecting fire, making sure every enemy learned the same lesson. Rules were comforts for the complacent, not weapons for the willing. Harper's console lit with frantic transmissions. "Sir, I'm intercepting fleet-wide comms. Crews are panicking. Some are refusing to man stations. Dr. Park, the ship's combat psychologist, stepped forward. They've never faced an opponent who doesn't care about their calculus. They can't process a fight that's this personal. The final break came when 5 captured ships, 2 Torval, 2 Hegemony, and 1 Zalthian, turned their weapons on the fleets they came from. The confusion was total. "Sir, they're trying to withdraw," Harper said. Reeve looked at the burning wreckage, at the drifting hulks, and then at the still intact ships running for the edges of the system. "Let them go, but make sure they remember what they learned today." He opened a channel to all surviving enemy ships. "You came here to test humanity. You've seen what one ship can do. Remember that before you ever come for us or for those we protect again." The fleets limped away, leaving behind 30 destroyed ships and a silence that seemed to stretch across the stars. When the Dawn's crew began repairs, the debris field told its own story. Human tactics had shattered 3 doctrines at once, and somewhere out there, the rest of the galaxy was already recalculating its view of the species from a small blue world that refused to play by anyone's rules. In Reeve's mind, though, the battle wasn't the point. The point was the reason, and he knew they'd need to make that reason clear before the galaxy decided to unite against them. The Iron Dawn's repair crews worked in silence, the sound of tools and machinery echoing through the ship's armored corridors. The smell of scorched metal still hung in the air, a reminder of how close the shields had come to failing under the triple onslaught. In the command deck, Harper stood by the main viewport, her gaze fixed on the debris field fading into the distance. 3 fleets broken in a single battle, she murmured. "You know they'll call us monsters for this." Reeve didn't look up from the tactical console. "Better they call us monsters than think we're prey." A tone cut through the bridge, sharp and deliberate. The comms officer's voice carried a note of disbelief. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Dominion. Priority code, formal surrender under Galactic Accord statutes." Reeve's eyes narrowed. "Put it through." The screen resolved into the familiar face of High Captain Drevar. His silver-ringed eyes no longer held the arrogant gleam from Fairwind. His crest was dulled, his posture stiffer, as if the weight of the last defeats had settled into his bones. "Admiral Reeve," Drevar began, his voice even but edged with strain, "the Dominion acknowledges your superiority in open combat. We offer unconditional surrender under the protections of the Galactic Accord. In accordance with those laws, you will cease hostile action immediately, guarantee the safety of all Dominion personnel, and enter negotiations for reparations." On the Dawn's bridge, Harper exhaled. "Sir, that's the official channel. If we refuse, the Council will have cause to brand us a rogue combatant." Reeve said nothing for a long moment, his eyes locked on Drevar's image. He thought about the Fairwind families huddled in emergency shelters during the first attack. He thought about the Dominion's calculated civility, the way they had wrapped conquest in the language of law. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm. "Drevar, you've had the protection of those laws for centuries. They didn't stop you from attacking civilians. So tell me, why should they stop me now?" Drevar's frill flickered in shock. "Because without those laws there is no order." Reeve's jaw tightened. "Order without justice isn't order, it's just control." He cut the channel. The bridge went silent. Harper turned toward him slowly. "Sir, you just refused a formal surrender. The Council will." "The Council wasn't at Fairwind," Reeve said. "They didn't see the look in a child's eyes when you tell them help might not come. They didn't stand on a bridge with civilians in the line of fire because someone halfway across the galaxy decided the rules were worth more than lives. Dr. Park stepped forward from her station. Admiral, rejecting the surrender changes everything. Strategically, it will terrify them. Politically, it will unite some of them against us. Morally, Reeve met her gaze. Morally, it sends one message. You don't get to start a war with humanity and expect to walk away because you can quote the rulebook. In the lower decks, the Marines heard the news before the official briefing. Lane shook his head, leaning against the bulkhead. So we're finishing this. Mason was quiet for a moment. We've fought enough wars where the other side surrendered just long enough to rebuild. The Admiral's making sure this one doesn't. In engineering, Holt was less philosophical. If we're doing this, we'll need the Dawn at 100%. No mercy for our systems either. The decision had ripple effects before the first shot of the next engagement. Dominion ships began pulling back from their border patrols, abandoning outposts rather than risk being caught in open space. Other powers watched the exodus with a mix of fear and fascination. And in the council chambers on Nexus Prime, the debate grew heated. Representatives from dozens of species demanded sanctions. Others warned that confronting humanity now might be the greater danger. On the Dawn, Reeve convened his senior staff in the strategy room. The holodeable glowed with red and yellow markers, Dominion strongholds, logistics hubs, and fleet rally points. We have one objective, Reeve said. Make the Dominion incapable of threatening another human colony for the next 50 years. That means shipyards, weapons depots, command centers. We take them out or we take them over. Harper frowned. You know the Accord will call that total war. Reeve's eyes didn't waver. They called Fairwind a misunderstanding. Let them call this what they want. We'll call it making sure it never happens again. As the meeting broke, Dr. Park lingered. Admiral, may I speak freely? You always do. You're not just fighting to protect people anymore. You're making an example. That can be a tool or a temptation. Reeve's expression softened just slightly. You think I'm enjoying this? I think, she said carefully, that you know exactly how much fear buys you. And fear is a dangerous currency, even for the right cause. He didn't answer right away. If I can buy 50 years of peace for our colonies with fear, I'll take that trade. And when the bill comes due, we'll face it. 3 days later, the Iron Dawn crossed into the Dominion's inner defense belt. The enemy fleet that met them was smaller than before, fewer than 20 ships, but each was heavily armed and commanded by captains who had no illusions about what humanity would do if they lost. The comms crackled with Drevar's voice once more. Admiral Reeve, this is your last warning. Accept our surrender or we will fight you to the last. Reeve answered without hesitation. Then you'd better start fighting. The battle that followed was unlike any before it. The Dominion's tactics were sharper, their formations looser, their fire more concentrated. They had learned from their defeats, but so had the Dawn's crew. Harper directed precision strikes on their coordination ships, cutting their lines of communication. Mason's Marines hit a weapons depot mid-battle, detonating its munitions into the path of their own cruisers. Rao unleashed a program into the Dominion's targeting network, feeding them ghost images of ships that didn't exist. It wasn't a slaughter, it was dismantling. Piece by piece, the Dominion's ability to fight crumbled. When the last of their ships fell silent, Reeve gave an order that surprised even Harper. Signal all Dominion civilian stations in the sector, he said. Inform them their fleet is gone and that we will not fire on unarmed vessels. Harper's eyes narrowed. "Drawing a line, sir." "Yes," Reeves said. "The point isn't to destroy them. It's to end the part of them that thought this war was a good idea." The Dominion's surrender would come again, this time through quieter channels, sent not by Drevar but by governors and merchants who understood survival better than pride. But Reeve knew this wasn't the last fight. The Council's whispers were growing louder, and somewhere beyond the rim, other powers were deciding whether humanity was the galaxy's new threat or its reluctant guardian. The choice, he suspected, would depend on what they did next, and in that decision lay the real war. The Iron Dawn drifted in high orbit over the shattered remains of the Dominion Fleet Yard. What had once been a sprawling hub of ship construction and weapons manufacturing was now a skeletal ring of twisted girders and drifting slag. Small fires still burned along fragments of hull plating, flickering against the black. In the quiet after the battle, the weight of what they had done pressed differently on the crew. This hadn't been a defense of their own. It had been an invasion, surgical, precise, and utterly final. On the bridge, Harper reviewed the damage logs. "We've disabled 3 major shipyards in 2 weeks. Dominion logistics are collapsing. Every scout report says they're pulling back to their core worlds." "That's the point," Reeves said. His eyes were on the star map, but his mind was elsewhere. "We're not here to occupy. We're here to make it impossible for them to try this again." Dr. Park, standing just behind, tilted her head. "And what happens when they can't, but someone else can?" Reeve didn't answer right away, but the question stayed with him. The answer began to arrive 2 days later. The comms officer turned from his console, face pale. "Sir, we're receiving a Priority Omega distress call. Origin, Virene Protectorate, Tau Ilara Sector." Harper frowned. "Virene, they're barely warp capable. Population maybe 10 million spread across 3 planets. Message is fragmented," the comms officer said, routing it to the main display. Static filled the bridge, then resolved into the image of a Virene official, short, feathered, with wide black eyes. The background shook with distant impacts. "This is Minister Shea of the Virene Protectorate. We are under assault by forces of the Kethan trade clans. Our defenses will not hold. We beg." The feed cut in a burst of static. Harper glanced at Reeve. "Tau Ilara is a week outside our assigned theater. The Accord won't like us intervening." Reeve leaned forward, elbows on the armrests. "The Accord didn't like us saving Fairwind either. Plot a course." Dr. Park stepped closer. "You realize what this means, Admiral. You've built a reputation as the destroyer of fleets. Now they're calling you for rescue." Reeves' voice was quiet but steady. "If they're calling us, it's because no one else will come in time." The dawn burned hard toward Tau Ilara, every reactor pushed to its limits. Along the way, Reeve convened his senior staff in the strategy room. Harper outlined the Kethan, not a formal navy, but a network of powerful trade clans that used private fleets to enforce monopolies and seize resources. "They've never fought a war under Accord rules," she said. "They don't care about civilians. If they take the Virene worlds, they'll strip them for parts." Mason's jaw tightened. "And nobody's stopping them." "Closest Accord fleet is 18 days away," Harper replied. "Then it's us," Reeves said. When the dawn dropped into the Tau Ilara system, the scale of the assault was immediate. The Kethan fleet orbited Virene Prime like vultures around a wounded animal. Surface fires burned in sprawling lines, visible from space. Kethan strength: 22 warships, including 4 heavy barges converted for bombardment, Harper reported. Virene orbital defense grid is down to 30% capacity. Open a channel to the Kethan flagship, Reeve ordered. The screen filled with the image of a Kethan trade lord draped in gold chains, his wide mouth twisted in a grin. "Ah, the human warship, we've heard of you. This is not your concern. Take your ship and leave." "You're attacking civilians," Reeve said. "You will cease immediately." The Kethan laughed, a sound like metal grinding. "We are merchants, Admiral. We trade in whatever we can take, and no one stops a trade they cannot afford." The channel closed. Reeve sat back. "Target their barges first. Boarding wings to launch on my mark. Harper, direct the fighters to shield Virene transports." The Dawn surged forward, her hybrid cannons firing in paired salvos. The first tungsten-energized round punched through a Kethan barge's hull, igniting its munition stores in a flash that lit the orbital plane. Mason's shuttles followed, threading through the Kethan formation, docking hard against bulk freighters-turned gunships. Inside, the Marines found corridors crammed with cargo containers, makeshift gun emplacements, and crews armed with scavenged weapons. The fighting was brutal, the air thick with smoke and the smell of overheated metal. Down on Virene Prime, the planetary comm network crackled to life with unexpected news. The human dreadnought had arrived. Civilians huddled in shelters looked up at trembling displays to see the Kethan ships breaking formation under relentless fire. Minister Shea's voice trembled as she spoke over the link to Reeve. "Admiral, you came." Reeve's reply was simple. "You called." Within 4 hours, the Kethan fleet was in ruins. 2 ships fled into deep space, 4 were captured, the rest destroyed. Virene defense craft, damaged but still flying, moved to escort the Dawn into stable orbit. On the bridge, Harper said quietly, "We've just made another enemy and another ally." "Both are useful," Reeve said. "One reminds them not to try, the other reminds them we're worth calling." Later, in the ship's wardroom, Dr. Park confronted him again. "This is the pivot point, Elias. The galaxy's beginning to see you not just as a threat, but as a protector. Those are very different reputations, and each comes with a price." Reeve considered that. A protector has to be ready to fight harder than anyone who'd threaten what's theirs. If that's the price, we've been paying it for 10,000 years. "But what happens," Park asked, "when the galaxy starts deciding for itself what's yours to protect?" Reeve didn't answer, but outside the viewport the Virene people lit signal beacons across their cities, a gesture of gratitude visible from orbit. The crew watched in silence. Some felt pride, others felt the gravity of the road they were now walking. Because once you start being the one people call for help, you can never pretend not to hear the call. The Galactic Council chamber on Nexus Prime was a cathedral of glass and metal, its vaulted ceiling reflecting the light of a dozen suns through the station's artificial atmosphere. Representatives from more than 50 species filled the concentric tiers, each speaking in low, urgent voices. The air carried the electric charge of politics on the edge of panic. News of the Iron Dawn's intervention at Tau, Alara, had spread faster than any fleet could travel. Footage of Kethan ships breaking under human fire, of Virene beacons lighting their cities in gratitude, had become the most replayed feed in the Council's history, and the debate it sparked was tearing the chamber apart. Council leader Zani, the tall insectoid with a silver carapace, struck the floor with her staff. "Order. The session will come to order." A representative from the Torval Confederation rose, his voice clipped and cold. "The humans have overstepped. They intervened outside their jurisdiction, destroyed a Kethan fleet without sanction, and destabilized a trade network that, however distasteful, was recognized by the Accord. From the opposite tier, a Virene delegate stood, feathers bristling. They saved 10 million of my people from slaughter. If that is destabilization, may it happen again. The chamber erupted in overlapping shouts, some voices calling humanity saviors, others branding them dangerous meddlers. In a reserved observation deck above the council floor, Admiral Reeves stood with Ambassador Claire Watson, humanity's chief diplomatic envoy. "They want your head," Watson said without looking at him. "Half of them anyway. The other half want to pin medals on you, and they all agree on one thing: they need to hear from you directly." "I'm not a diplomat," Reeve replied. "No," Watson said with a faint smile. "You're the reason they are arguing at all. That gives you more weight here than any speech I can write." When his turn came, the murmurs in the chamber faded to a watchful hush. Reeve stepped onto the central platform, the translators humming softly as they prepared to carry his words across 50 languages. "I've heard the accusations," he began, "that we meddle, that we destabilize, that we fight wars without permission." He let his gaze sweep the room. The first human colony attacked under Accord territory was Fairwind Station. The Dominion followed the rules. They issued demands. They fired on civilians only after our shields fell below the limit. By your law, it was civilized warfare. A ripple of unease passed through the chamber. "Civilized warfare still kills children," Reeve said, his voice steady. "It still leaves families without homes. The rules you call civilization are designed to make war predictable for the ones with the power to win it." From the Torval tier, someone called out, "And what of the rules that protect the weak from the strong?" Reeve didn't flinch. Rules didn't protect Fairwind. People did. Ships did. Men and women willing to bleed for someone else's safety did. That's the only protection that has ever mattered. A Khazari delegate leaned forward, his scaled fingers tapping the rail. "You think humanity should be the galaxy's guardians. That is arrogance of the highest order." Reeves' eyes met his. "We don't think we should be. We think we have to be. Because when the call comes, too many here take a vote instead of a stand." The Virene delegate rose again. "And if you cannot answer every call?" Reeve hesitated, the question heavier than any barrage. "Then we answer the ones we can, and we make sure that whoever's watching knows the cost of preying on the helpless." When he left the platform, the chamber was a storm of voices again. No consensus, no resolution, just the knowledge that the humans would not be bound by the same comfortable calculus the rest of the galaxy lived by. In the quiet of the corridor outside, Watson caught up to him. "You made more enemies." Reeve gave a humorless smile. "And a few more friends." Back aboard the Iron Dawn, Harper was waiting with new intelligence. "Sir, multiple scout reports confirm unusual fleet movements in the Perseus Verge. Not Dominion, not Kethan. Unknown coalition ships from several powers operating together." Reeve studied the tactical readouts. "Purpose. They're massing on the edge of neutral space. Analysts think they're coming for us. Some think it's a show of force, others a preemptive strike. Dr. Park entered the bridge. You've become a variable they can't calculate. The only way to balance that equation is to remove it." Reeves' gaze stayed on the starfield ahead. "Then we show them what happens when you try." Orders rippled through the dawn. Marines ran readiness drills. Engineers checked every hybrid system. Fighters were armed and loaded with fresh munitions. In the hangar, Mason addressed his troops. "If this is what it looks like, we'll be facing the biggest fleet we've ever seen. And I'll tell you what that means. It means more ships to take, more weapons to turn against them, more proof that you don't mess with humanity. The call came less than 24 hours later. The Coalition fleet had crossed into contested space, broadcasting no demands, only the cold silence of intent. Harper looked to Reeve. "We engage." Reeve's answer was simple. "We end it." And as the Iron Dawn set course, every member of her crew knew the next battle would decide not just their fate, but the shape of humanity's place in the galaxy. The Coalition fleet waited for them in the dark between stars. On the Dawn's tactical display, the red icons seemed to stretch endlessly across the grid. Over 100 ships of mixed design and origin, gathered from powers that had spent centuries distrusting each other but now found a common cause: remove the human variable. Harper studied the readout in silence. Hegemony heavy cruisers on the front line, Torval precision frigates in flanking positions, Zalthian battleships at the core, and, she hesitated, Dominion carriers, Drevars here. On the far side of the bridge, Dr. Park said quietly, "They've united every doctrine we've beaten separately. If they can coordinate, this could break us." Reeve stood at the center of it all, hands clasped loosely behind his back. If they can coordinate. The Coalition's first transmission came not from Drevar, but from a Zalthian commander whose polished armor gleamed even through the comm feed. "Admiral Reeve, you are surrounded. Surrender the Iron Dawn and submit to council arbitration. Refusal will result in your destruction." Reeve let the silence stretch a beat too long, his gaze sweeping the faces of his crew. "You've all heard their terms," he said at last. "You also know what happens if we vanish into their custody. They rewrite the story until we're the villains in every port, and no one calls us for help again." He turned back to the comm. "Coalition Command, if you came here to see what humanity can do, you'll get your answer, but you won't like it." The battle began with the precision of a clock striking the hour. Zalthian battleships advanced in a slow wall of armor, their heavy cannons firing in alternating volleys to keep a constant stream of energy on target. Torval frigates darted along the flanks, targeting shield nodes. Hegemony cruisers came head-on, brute force in every salvo. The Dawn's hybrid shields flared, absorbed, and converted the incoming energy into a hum through the deck plates. "Shields at 92%, Harper called. "Feed it to the guns," Reeve said. The Dawn answered with a broadside of kinetic energy hybrids. The first Hegemony cruiser split clean in half. A Torval frigate vanished into an expanding cloud of vapor, but the Coalition's sheer numbers closed the gaps as quickly as they were made. "Boarding wings, launch," Reeve ordered. Mason's shuttles streaked out into the chaos, targeting ships at the seams of the Coalition's formation, places where alien distrust had left gaps in defensive coordination. Marines boarded with the speed of a lightning strike, moving through alien corridors like they'd trained for them their entire lives. On one captured Dominion carrier, Mason stood over the command deck while Harper's voice crackled through his earpiece. "Get their launch bays under control. We can turn their fighters on the Coalition." The order was carried out within minutes. Dominion pilots found themselves staring at their own strike craft, now flown by human Marines with captured codes, coming at them with merciless precision. Back on the Dawn, Dr. Park was watching the Coalition's calm chatter. "They are fracturing. The Torval are accusing the Hegemony of leaving their flanks open. The Zalthians are demanding unified targeting priorities. It's unraveling." "Push it," Reeve said. make them doubt each other faster. Rao activated the psychological warfare package. Across coalition comms, human voices roared ancient war cries, intercut with footage of Marines fighting through fire and smoke. Old songs from Earth's wars poured through the enemy channels, anthems of defiance that had carried soldiers through centuries. In the middle of the chaos, Rivera's fighter squadron dove through the Zalthian formation, skimming so close to battleship hulls their wing edges left scorched trails. He didn't target weapons this time, he targeted trust. Every run was unpredictable, making the coalition's gunners hesitate for fear of hitting an ally. On the tactical map, red icons began to peel away, not destroyed but retreating. Gaps opening, Harper reported. Then we drive the wedge, Reeves said. The Dawn surged forward, her guns hammering at the coalition's center. Captured ships on the flanks turned their weapons inward. Marines detonated reactor cores aboard enemy command vessels. In less than an hour, the 100-ship fleet was a scattering of broken lines, some ships limping away, others burning in the dark. Only Drevar's carrier remained in the path of the Dawn. The channel opened without Reeves' order. Drevar stood on his bridge, the expression on his face unreadable. "You've proven your point, Admiral. The galaxy will speak of this for generations. But do you know what they'll say?" Reeves' eyes were steady. "They'll say we were there when it mattered." Drevar inclined his head. Whether in respect or simply acknowledgement, Reeve couldn't tell. Then the channel closed and the Dominion carrier turned away, vanishing into hyperspace. Silence settled over the Dawn's bridge. The crew looked to Reeve, waiting for the next order. "Stand down from battle stations," he said. "Damage control teams to priority sections, and signal every ship we save today they're free to go home." Harper hesitated. "Sir, the Council will never let this stand." "They don't have to," Reeves said. "The people we've fought for will." Weeks later, the Council reconvened. Delegates spoke in careful tones now. Some still accused humanity of destabilizing the balance, but others, more than before, argued that the balance had been broken long before the Iron Dawn ever fired a shot. In a private meeting, Council leader Thazani told Reeve, "Your species has forced us to confront the cost of our own comfort. We will not thank you for it, but we will not forget it." "That's enough," Reeve said. On the Iron Dawn's bridge, the crew watched a convoy of mixed-species ships pass in peaceful formation. Virene freighters, Torval passenger liners, even a Kethan merchant vessel under Virene escort. It was a small thing, fragile and temporary, but it was something. Dr. Park stood beside Reeve. "Guardians and destroyers in the same breath. Can we be both without losing one to the other?" Reeve watched the convoy disappear into the blue-white shimmer of jump space. "We'll find out, and if we can't, we'll still answer the call." Because for humanity, that was the rule that mattered. The age of civilized warfare was over. The age of choosing to fight because someone had to had begun.